All right. So the topic is basically, if you see my screen, human-centric business agility. It has two folds. Basically, it's a philosophy and it's also a framework. We'll try to cover both as much as possible. And at any point in time, if you have a question for clarification on what I'm talking about, please feel free to stop me. A bit about me. This is basically slightly superficial after Vijay has talked so much about me. But yes, it will give us some context from where I'm looking at things. I've been an agile practitioner and a student of agility since 2007. Of course, my first sprint and the first touch with Scrum was in 2005, but it was for a very small transitional period. Um, so, all right, so basically, I have played diverse agile roles, transformation practitioner, Scrum Master, product owner, team member in different countries and diverse cultures. That's something that has actually given me the opportunity to understand agility and how it takes shape in diverse cultures. While applying Scrum, I have worked with colleagues in different countries. So basically, I have experienced how agile takes shape, how it is perceived and understood in diverse countries and cultures. And the spectrum is really, really wide. If I would like to tell you, the spectrum is really wide. How agile is understood, how it is perceived is so diverse. It actually is enlightening to see that that type of spectrum, the spread of spectrum is possible. And that's a reality. I've worked in diverse and unique R&D and safety critical, globally distributed, complex product development context. That itself is a complex thing, whatever that means. But yes, that's my background. Since 2002, I've been a student of organizational behavior, the psychology aspect that Vijay mentioned, and a practitioner of organizational development, where I apply this organizational behavior study. Of course, I have been on a mission that's a disclosure to establish human-centric agile. So whatever I say, please take that with a pinch of salt because I'm on a mission. All right. So the primary question we should be asking ourselves is that, okay, why another agile framework? Because there are a lot of agile frameworks around us. So let's try to explore that. All right, so just make some space. The current state of affairs, the way I describe it is this: the very basics around agile and agility have been buried in misinformation, misinterpretation, ritualization, keeping things implicit, excessive commercialization, and those basics have unfortunately been lost, diluted, forgotten, and ignored to a certain degree over time. This is what I have found in my research. Um, there is an urgent need to, so this is an invitation basically to take a look at what we should be focusing on, make explicit whatever is implicit, we have to make it explicit, bring to the forefront. So basically, if it is in the background, we have to bring it to the foreground so that people could see it, make it explicit so that people really understand why, what is the cornerstone, what is the foundation. So basically, strengthen the focus of the agile practitioners community on the fundamentally basic and significant elements around agility that lead to the intended benefits of outcomes of agile. So basically, we have agile because we are interested in a set of outcomes. So to be able to do that, we need to do these two things. So that brings us to the question, what is missing? So we need to figure out what is missing. Unless it's broken, we should not be fixing it, right? So let's see. It's difficult to find many agile frameworks that have been the elements mentioned below as a set of inherent and explicit parts of the very frameworks. Now, when I talk about that, can you think of any of these things that, okay, these are the things which are missing basically in the frameworks that we have today? Any guess, any thoughts on that? Ethics. So basically, when I say ethics,
Uh, yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah, sure.
absolutely great. So basically, we are connected in that level, I believe. There's no framework that comes out and says ethics is one of my building blocks. So you have to apply this agile framework, then you have to apply ethics as an explicit cornerstone or a building block which is a part of the framework. So without this, you are not able to apply it. It's hard to find many frameworks. Servant leadership. Now, as far as it goes, as far as my research goes, is that there are some frameworks that say, okay, we have a certain role in the framework, and that role is a servant leadership role. It doesn't come out and say, really? So basically, all the roles involved need to apply, embrace servant leadership. The whole organization, the whole team, the whole department that basically applies this framework needs to apply the values, the principles, and the practices of servant leadership. It's very difficult to find a framework that does that. Fighting fake agile. We'll take a look at it, what fake agile is we're talking about. But there's no framework I have found that says, oh, okay, because there is a reason that fake agile is so deep rooted, is so commonplace. It says there is a mechanism in this framework to address that thing. And we'll also talk about why to address that, why it is so required, so much important to actually address that. So it's difficult to find a framework that actually does that. Prevention of wastage of human lives and organizational lives. So many of the frameworks implicitly lead towards that, but not most of them basically make it explicit and make it a part of the framework so that you can prevent wastage of human lives and organizational life. And that can be nothing precious, nothing more precious than this. Human centricity. Most of the agile frameworks, agile itself is human centric. Most of the agile frameworks are human centric, but more or less in an implicit way. So there has to be a framework that makes it explicit that, okay, if you are taking this framework, you're trying to apply this framework, you are also applying, you are also embracing human centricity. There is no escape, right? Embedding agile in the organizational culture. So there are differences between following a standard operating procedure and having something in the culture. If there is something in the culture, it is very deep rooted and it stays there. Everyone does that because in the culture. If it is a standard operating procedure or something similar, it is slightly cosmetic. So that's the difference there. Right. So what is human-centric business agility framework? So we talked about the thought. We're now coming over to talking about the framework. There is a framework called Human-Centric Business Agility Framework. So human-centric business agility is a framework. Of course, it's a framework. And for what? For designing, implementing, improving, and sustaining ethical, human-centric, agile business organizations. Let's take a closer look at it. So if it is a new organization, it has not been designed yet, yes, this framework can be used while you design the organization. If the organization has been designed, you are in the process of implementing the organization, yes, you can use this framework. The organization has been designed and implemented, you're trying to improve the organization, yes, you can use this framework. It is improved, designed, implemented, and improved. You want to sustain this improvement, you can use this framework. What it leads to is basically ethical, human-centric, agile business organizations. Now, how do you do that? By embedding human-centric agility in organizational cultures. So it doesn't say you do something like, okay, bring a list of steps, you follow those steps, or a standard operating procedure, go by that. No, the explicit requirement in case of this framework is that you have to go ahead and embed this thing in your organizational culture, which is actually a difficult thing. It's not easy, it's not small, it's not quick, but that's the only way. To achieve what? To sustainably generate positive, real results for businesses, their customers, their people, and the society at large. So basically, again, human-centric business agility is a framework for what? For designing, implementing, improving, and sustaining ethical human-centric agile business organizations by embedding human-centric agility in the organizational cultures to sustainably generate positive real results for businesses, their customers, their people, and the society at large. That's a working description of this framework. Now, In terms of what? When we talk about human-centric, human centricity, we need to have a working description to use that phrase in different contexts. Um, as I have gone ahead, searched for one, but have not found actually a generic one, so I have come up with this. What's human-centric? If something is human-centric, that something is suitable to serve or be useful for human beings in particular. That's human-centric. Among many alternatives, because there are always alternatives, more often than not, the human-centric ones are the best ones for human beings. So that's our working description of human-centric and human centricity. With that, we'll take a look at what this is about. There must exist, this is the proposition, there must exist at least one agile framework, the foundational focus of which is to achieve these three goals based on the four features listed below. So which three goals? Significantly better lives for all the people touched by business organizations. So basically people within the business organizations and people outside the business organizations influenced, impacted, touched by the business organizations. And there are loads and loads of business organizations in this world. Significantly better business results. The businesses need to sustain themselves, so they need results. If they sustain, the people impacted by them in a positive way also benefit because of the sustenance. So basically, we are also interested in business results. A significantly better society. So if you look at it, actually, the first and second typically lead to the third one. If you have better lives, if you have better business results, you have better businesses, it contributes significantly in a positive way to a better society. Now we take a look at what are those four foundational features that we are talking about. Human centricity, explicitly a feature of this framework. It has to be human centric. That means it has to be suitable to serve or be useful for human beings in particular. Ethics, so moral values, moral principles, ethical behavior, integrity, everything that is covered in ethics. The wider meaning of ethics. It's not about, it's not basically the limited scope of having a ethical standard or code of conduct described for the people directly related to the framework. It's basically ethics all over in everything that we do. The next one is business agility embedded in the organizational culture. So if you are not able to embed this thing in the organizational culture, that means it's very clear that you are not able to apply this framework. To apply this framework, this is a prerequisite. This is an expectation. This is a part of it, very explicit part of it. Meticulous prevention of wastage of human life and organizational life. If this part is not there, then we're not doing this framework. We're doing something else. Right? Let's go ahead. What's required to attain human-centric business agility? So it's not a long laundry list. It's not. Just two things. Just two things. But each of these things are meticulous activity, very complex, time-taking, and difficult. But just two things. Eradication of fake agile to make room for real agile. The room available, whatever the room means, the space in the mind, the time, the organizational context, it is finite. If it is filled with fake agile, there is no way, there is no place, there is no space to actually put real agile. So first we have to do the cleanup. First we have to remove, eradicate fake agile so that there is a blank slate. There is a there is an easier context where you could actually establish real agile. Without removing fake agile, it is extremely difficult. It might be possible, but it is extremely difficult. What is fake agile, by the way? Any thoughts?
Modified processes, like people modify agile processes according to their own convenience.
Yes, very good. I like it. Okay.
I would say, I mean, I'm also fine with modified, um, because the whole agility itself is based on I mean, the advanced set of agility, if you actually see, based on the those 12 principles. So there's a lot of scope for advancement and changing. However, illogical change or just uh, taking from the framework an event or something like that, just focusing on that event rather than the values of it, rather than the basics of it, rather than um, uh, the benefits of it from the perspective of the team and organization, just following the rituals and uh, not the values or the benefits derived by means of it.
Absolutely. Excellent.
Another word I can say is forced agile. So,
Yes.
Okay, that's a
Yes.
good one.
Another one for that is imposed agile. So
yeah,
yeah. Yeah, go ahead, please.
yeah, that's what I meant to say. It's a forced agile. So just
Yes,
want to
absolutely.
just
I'm completely
whatever
with you.
Vijay said is the same. Yeah.
Yep. Very
I
good.
think
Very good
thoughts are
indeed.
getting clearer and clearer. I mean, I said it so many words bureaucratically, but I think you are coming out with very crisp words. Thank
Yes.
you for that. Yeah.
So there is a simpler description. So basically, to cover it all, so catch all. Basically, fake agile is something that looks like real agile on the surface. On the surface is the key. But deep down inside, it's not agile. It's something else. Fake agile doesn't generally lead to the usual benefits of agile. That's the litmus test. If it is not leading to those outcomes, then it is not that. It's basically if you actually hit your thumb hard with a sledgehammer, you are expected to feel some pain. But if you do that, you feel no pain. There is something fake around it, either the action or the hammer or anything else. At its best, it's merely a hope against hope that fake agile will lead to real results. All right, why is fake agile such a big problem? What's the big fuss about it? You see, fake agile limits the potential of human lives and organizational lives. Such a big problem. It's a very big problem. Fake agile diminishes human and organizational lives figuratively and literally, symbolically and actually. It does that. That's what I have found in my research. Fake agile eats into real agile, which is human centric to a great extent. As I mentioned earlier, real agile is very human centric. But when fake agile sets in, it eats into real agile. So the value of real agile, the impact of real agile, the presence of real agile ceases to exist. It starts to dissipate, diminish, to go away. The second, the second element over here is embedding human-centric agility in organizational culture. So basically, we need to have two things done to apply this framework: eradication of fake agile, embedding human-centric agility in the organizational culture. And both of these things are very complex, very difficult. It takes time. It's not quick. It's not small. But the outcomes are every penny worth. Now, why to embed human-centric agility in the organizational cultures? Why do that? What's the deal with this? Why to embed in the cultures? The simple answer is if something is embedded in the organizational culture, that something persists in the organization. So that's the expectation. That is how it works in the real world. All right. With that done, what does fake agile look like? Any thoughts? Just imagine in your mind a picture how fake agile looks like. And I'll show you a picture as well. Here you go. This is what it looks like. What's the problem with this? There's no problem, right? It's a sunny day. It's a brilliant day. We are charting our course. We are moving towards our target. There's no problem, right? But that's only on the surface. But if you look deep down within, like it's like the tip of the iceberg. But if you look deep down within, you see this. And that tells a lot. So when we talk about fake agile and any organization that's somehow into fake agile, so basically we, for our standard use in this discussion, we say, okay, it's a fake agile organization. Nobody wants to have a fake agile organization. No organization wants to be a fake agile organization, but it happens. Things happen, right? So it happens. So if you look into a fake agile organization, what is that you are going to typically see is basically a laundry list of things. The beginning is you will see a profound lack of knowledge and experience around real agile and agility. That's a given. You'll also see inorganic efforts to establish agility. There's a difference between establishing it organically and forcing or imposing, and then, you know what I mean. Agile not rooted in the organizational culture. That's what you'll also see. You'll also see flawed transformation endeavors. There will be transformation endeavors, but the way it is attempted, there are a lot of flaws, fundamental flaws in that. No suitable people as practitioners, because the lack of knowledge and experience, you don't have suitable people to actually drive that activity. Strongly established wrong habits, missing habits that are required. You'll see all those things. You also come across the wrong assumptions and perceptions about agile and agility in general. It's a dramatic thing, how it exists in different people's minds. Premature scaling attempts is something that you potentially will come across. So you're not there, you have not started really, you have not stabilized it, but you are actually attempting to scale it. Now, flawed scaling endeavors. You're trying to scale, but there are a lot of flaws in the way you are trying to do it. Another very important thing, a stressful work environment. It's a given. If it's a fake agile organization, the work environment is more or less, more often than not, is very stressful. Lack of rigor in thinking. When I say lack of rigor in thinking, it's basically about, it goes back to what do we know now? Think about it for a moment and then decide what to do next. Empiricism, basically. You'll not see that. You'll not see that. People will not stop to see what is available now as new information and learn from that and plan, change the plan, refine the plan. No. Blaming agile and people for failures. Another interesting thing you'll see in fake agile organizations. Organization design doesn't support agility. Yeah, it's a chicken and egg problem. Lack of ability to detect fake agile because there is lack of knowledge and experience. The organization doesn't have the ability to detect that it is suffering from fake agile. That's also you'll see. Reports our results figuratively and literally. Significant emphasis on reports, which could be directed and diverted to generating real results for the real stakeholders. Extremely low level of trust, imposed and not inherent agility, forced agility. We as an organization, for an example, when we say there is fake agile organization X, for example, they have not come to this thought, this realization, this understanding, and this strong desire to become agile because they food for them. No, in those cases, they have started doing something that looks like agile because either their funding organization or any entity that is more powerful politically, financially, they have said, oh, you have to do it. And that's why this organization is doing it. Scarcity of servant leadership. It's a given in any fake agile organization. You'll not really find any servant leadership or that style of leadership. Very unfortunate, but yeah, that's the case. Absence of benefits of agility, because real agility is not there. You'll not see the benefits of agility. And of course, you will see the most pitiful thing, wastage of human and organizational life. All right, that's quite a bit about the fake agile situation and scenario. How does the framework look like? Is there a shape to it? Oh yes, there is a shape, there is a construct. It has three aspects. The foundation is about the root elements. The root elements include Agile values and principles from the Agile Manifesto. Nothing else. The Agile Manifesto, the tried and tested, very, very valuable set of values and principles. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We have a great thing available. So it's one of the building blocks. Scrum, one of the oldest Agile frameworks, one of the widest in use Agile frameworks. Servant leadership, as described, defined by Robert K. Greenleaf. Ethics, as far as generic meaning is concerned, no refined curtailed meaning. The generic meaning is concerned. While we take a look at these root elements, I'd like to raise a point is that if you find Scrum is not really, you identify that, you actually establish that Scrum is not really the right Agile framework for your organization, your context, your team, that's absolutely fine. Go for another organizational framework, Agile framework, and there is no problem. So instead of Scrum, go for something else, as long as that doesn't contradict with the rest of the root elements. As long as it gives you the intended outcomes of Agile, intended outcomes of agility. There's no problem, go for that, it's flexible. Now, once the root elements are in place, it leads to certain cultural elements. When we talk about cultural elements, those cultural elements typically show up as a set of cohesive elements. So the cultural elements we're talking about, those include Agile mindset, growth mindset, ownership mindset, continuous collaboration, continuous learning, continuous improvement, empiricism, listening, thinking, morality, empathy, trust, and resilience. So once you have the root elements in place in their real form with their full potency, this is the set of cultural elements that show up in the organization. However, this set is not fixed, this set is not rigid. Depending on your context, there could be other great things that will show up in terms of cultural elements. That's absolutely fine. There's no surprise. Now, once you have the root elements in place in their intended full, complete potential form, and the cultural elements show up, the combined effect of these things is basically the set of outcomes. Outcomes in terms of lower cost, greater quality, greater innovation, improved time to market with the right product, right solution, right service, and the resultant customer delight. If everything goes fine with these things, it leads to greater well-being for all the people within the organization and outside touched by the organization. If all that happens, it leads to a better society. This is the whole schematic of the framework. The basic philosophy of this framework is don't reinvent the wheels, get the really established grand things already available in this world. So those have been used as the building blocks. And if those are used, applied, embraced in the right way, they will lead to the intended results that they have been doing. There's no exception. So that's the schematic of this human-centric business agility framework. And that brings us to our discussion.